Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Friday the 27th of October 2023. I come to you this week from Spain. I have to say it's been a beautiful holiday. The weather has been superb and I haven't broken any bones yet either. Everybody should now be in receipt of their newsletter. And again, please remember this newsletter is written by members for members. So if there's anything you think people would enjoy listening to and hearing about, please never hesitate to get in touch with us and we can include the article in the next newsletter, which will be going out at the end of January 2024. Or that does seem a little weird talking about 2024 so early. Everybody, stay safe. Lisa, CEO. Thank you.
Here is this week's charity news. There is no swimming for the next 2 weeks due to school holidays, but will resume on November the 6th. Our IT drop-in resumes at Millbrook House on Monday 9:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. This is now an appointment-only service, so please call the office and book a slot with Sam. Yoga is on Tuesdays between 1:45 and 2:45 p.m. at Millbrook House every week, and the cost is £4. All welcome to come along. Coffee and chat is on Wednesdays between 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. at Millbrook House. Please come along and meet the staff, volunteers and members for a chat, and also to look at second-hand equipment, seek advice, etc. This is open to everyone. The book group will meet at the Lord Louis Library, Newport, starting at 2 p.m. This group is free to join and is always looking for new members.
And we are delighted to announce that we will be having Hayley in on Thursday to run a foot care clinic. Hayley not only cuts nails, but deals with hard skin, callus, treatment of corns, verruca, plus foot cream with a massage. The appointment will be and half-hour slots, and the cost is £25. If you would like an appointment, please call Susan. Paul, our volunteer, has his next quiz at the Gallibaggers Chillerton on November the 10th, starting at 7:30 p.m. If you wish to book a table, please call the office. We are very pleased to announce we have been donated a beautiful hand-sewn quilt, which we have decided to raffle. You can buy a square for £2 from the office. The draw will take place on December the 13th. It is a king-sized quilt and beautiful. It is hung at Millbrook House on display. Plans are underway for the Christmas draw, and as always we are looking for donations for prizes. If you know anyone who you think would be willing to donate a prize or a voucher, please once again get in touch with Susan. Everyone should have received 2 books of tickets, but if you wish to purchase more, please do not hesitate to call the office. Further details on any of the activities and events can be obtained by calling the office on 522205.
This article from the Island Echo, read by Howard, is to do with the controlled detonation of a suspected explosive device. The Royal Navy's Explosive Ordnance Disposal Team carried out a controlled explosion of the device in the West Wight on Tuesday. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary were alerted to the presence of the suspicious object near Golden Hill Country Park at around 8:20 on Tuesday morning. It's understood that they stood guard until the Royal Navy unit arrived from Portsmouth at just before 1700 hours. The object is thought to be some sort of canister or flare and was discovered by dog walkers. According to a user on social media, a member of the public marked it with a stick and a green poo bag. Island Echo is told that the device was detonated by means of a controlled explosion on the beach at Freshwater Bay.
Island Carers Passport Scheme launched to support unpaid carers. From the Island Echo, read by Joyce. Carers Isle of Wight have teamed up with Isle of Wight NHS Trust to launch the Carers Passport Scheme. the first of its kind on the island, to support unpaid carers to be recognised for the important role they play caring for people who need that extra support. The new passport scheme is designed to provide a range of useful benefits to our island's unpaid carers, not only ensuring that unpaid carers are recognised, but to support them within the important caring role they provide. It will help to connect carers to local support and advice services, along with accessing discounts and local concessions to make life a little easier. Vanessa Flower, Head of Patient Experience, said, "We are delighted to have partnered with Carers Isle of Wight to launch the new Carers Passport scheme. Carers play a vital role in supporting our teams to provide continuity of care and support for people, particularly when they may need to be admitted to hospital. The passport will also help carers when visiting St Mary's Hospital to visit the people they care for outside of visiting hours, as well as enabling them to support with feeding and to be actively involved in meetings about the patient with their consent and be included in any discussions surrounding discharge planning." Elizabeth Martin, manager at Carers Isle of Wight, said, "This is great news for carers. Our carers told us that having the passport makes it easier for them as a carer when they need to talk to health and social care professionals." Carers Isle of Wight and Isle of Wight NH Trust are encouraging all carers on the island to apply for the passport. A temporary passport can be issued by the team based in the Carers Lounge located at North Hospital, the ward, or at main reception. The Carers IW community team will also be holding a drop-in session every Thursday morning at the Carers Centre, Riverside, between 10:30 and 12, from Thursday the 26th of October, where carers can apply for a passport. More information can be provided by contacting Carers Isle of Wight. The number is 01983 533 173. That's 01983 533 173, or on their website, which is www.carersIW.org.uk.
This is Michael reading from Island Echo. Major roadworks scheme to be undertaken in East Cowes next month. East Cowes residents are being informed about upcoming roadworks on York Avenue next month, as Island Roads undertake important work on two separate sections of the main road. The work involves reconstruction of the carriageway in two phases. Phase 1, 6th to the 17th of November, will focus on the section of York Avenue between Well Road and Clarence Road. This phase will be done under traffic lights to minimise disruption to businesses and residents alike. The duration may vary depending on what is discovered once excavations commence, as well as the weather conditions during the work. This work is on a section that was treated at the start of our contract in 2013 with surface treatment, and which now, a decade later, needs more substantial treatment to address a deterioration in the road's substructure identified through recent inspections. Phase 2, 20th of November to the 1st of December, will address similar issues in York Avenue between Kent Avenue and New Barn Road. This phase will require a road closure, with traffic being diverted onto Victoria Grove and Adelaide Grove. Island Road's construction manager, Keith Courtley, said, We have tried to programme each phase outside of the busy summer season and half-term holiday when the roads are less busy, but we recognise that it will still cause some inconvenience for those living and travelling in the area. However, it is important work that must be done to safeguard the use of this key route, and we thank people in advance for their patience. The diversion route during the second phase of the work will be via Victoria Grove and Adelaide Grove. Local businesses remain open and can be accessed via the diversion or on foot. Red Funnel passengers are advised to allow more time for their journeys to and from the terminal. For any changes to bus routes or stops, please seek advice from Southern Vectis. Emergency access and pedestrian access within the works area will be maintained throughout both phases.
This is Patrina reading from Island Echo. Remember to check for hedgehogs this bonfire night. The British Hedgehog Preservation Society, BHPS, has issued top tips on how best to reduce the risk of harming hedgehogs this bonfire night. As many people gear up for bonfire and fireworks season, it's vital to remember wildlife at this time of year. Favas, chief executive of the society, said, "A bonfire pile looks like a 5-star hotel to a hedgehog seeking a safe and cosy winter home to hibernate in. They aren't to know we plan to set light to it." Taking just a few extra minutes to check for wildlife really does make a difference and help save the lives of hedgehogs, other wildlife and pets. BHPS has a 3-step plan to help ensure the safety of hedgehogs on bonfire night. 1. Move the materials to clear ground on the day they're to be lit. 2. Check the pile carefully just before striking that match. 3. Offer an escape route by only lighting from one side. This gives anything hidden in the heap one final chance to escape. Faye added, "It's vital that all 3 steps are carried out to give hedgehogs the best possible chance to escape the danger of a lit bonfire." Hedgehogs tend to hide in the centre and bottom 2 feet of the bonfire, which should be checked by gently lifting the bonfire section by section with a pole or broom. Never use a spade or fork, as these can stab them. Using a torch will help to see any signs of life, and listen for a huffing sound, which is the noise hedgehogs make when disturbed. If you do find a hedgehog in your unlit bonfire heap, gather it up with as much of the nest as you can and place in a high-sided cardboard box with plenty of torn newspaper, toweling or straw. Ensure there are air holes in the lid and that the lid is secured firmly to the box, as hedgehogs are great climbers. Wear gardening gloves or use an old towel to handle them so as not to get human smells on them and to keep them calm, as hedgehogs are easily stressed. It also protects your hands from their spikes. Put the box in a safe, quiet place, such as a shed or garage well away from the festivities, and offer the hedgehog some meaty cat or dog food and water. Once the embers are totally dampened down, release the hedgehog under a hedge, bush or behind a stack of logs near where it was found, with its original nesting materials.
This article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Howard, is to do with application for an alcohol licence. The popular Isle of Wight camping and caravan park is looking to sell alcohol at its shop. The owners of Stoats Farm on Western Lane in Totland are applying to the Isle of Wight Council for an alcohol licence. It means they can then sell alcohol at their shop to drink on the campsite or take it away with them. If successful, the licence would mean it can sell booze from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week should they wish to. To protect the public, the form says all alcohol sales would require ID for proof of age, and the booze would be placed on higher shelves and away from items sold to children. To prevent public nuisance, the form says it would refuse alcohol sales to anyone deemed to be too drunk or to known street drinkers, and the existing campsite rules would still be in place to ensure noise is kept to a minimum. It's hoped that the licence can come into effect from November 1st. You can view the licensing application on the Isle of Wight Council's planning register. Comments can be submitted until November 9th.
7 teenagers due in court after 200k damage caused to Grade 2 listed Shanklin building. From Isle of Wight Radio, read by Joyce. 7 teenagers are due in court to face charges of high-value criminal damage in Shanklin. Between the 5th of May and the 5th of June 2022, it's alleged that significant damage estimated to be in excess of £200,000 worth was caused to the interior of a Grade 2 listed house in Rectory Road. Following an investigation by the South Wight Neighbourhoods Policing Team, the following individuals, who cannot be named for legal reasons, have been issued a summons to appear at Isle of Wight Youth Court tomorrow, Wednesday 25th of October, to face 1 count each of criminal damage. A 14-year-old girl from Shanklin, 2 13-year-old boys from Shanklin, a 15-year-old boy from Newport, a 14-year-old girl from God's Hill, a 16-year-old boy from Hythe, New Forest, a 14-year-old boy from Shanklin.
This is Michael reading from Isle of Wight Radio. Hundreds of potential new jobs as new delivery depot plans unveiled for Whippingham. Hundreds of jobs could be created on the Isle of Wight as the second part of a major delivery depot development has been unveiled. Due to the rise in online shopping, plans have been submitted to build a warehouse and parcel collection centre at Whippingham Technology Park, opposite the Isle of Wight College's Centre of Excellence for Composites, Advanced Manufacturing and Marine CECAMM. Proposals have been submitted by a West Sussex pension scheme, Chartwood Holdings, although some plans have been devised for company, Logistics 4U. Ireland Echo understands that the depot will house Acclaim Logistics and Isle of Wight Distribution. As previously reported by Ireland Echo, in April this year, plans for a larger warehouse at the back of the technology park next to Certas Energy were submitted to the Isle of Wight Council, but have yet to be determined. The new plans, recently submitted, could see a smaller warehouse also built at the technology park, with 21 parking bays for lorries. Between the two units, 200 full-time jobs would be created in the delivery business. It would be a parcel collection area for customers on the ground floor and offices and a boardroom on the top floor. Permission was granted in 2017 for a warehouse opposite CECAMM, but the proposals have now changed to take account of current market requirements and business growth. Planning documents say the Planning and Development Hub says the proposals represent an important opportunity for investment and economic regeneration. The plans say the technology park has been designed and laid out to accommodate commercial levels of traffic, and the potential increase in traffic has already been accounted for. During the day, it is proposed 4 times 40-foot lorries will come and go from the site, as well as 32 vans leaving at different times of the day. If both applications go ahead, all plots of the technology park would be full. You can view the plans on the Isle of Wight Council's Planning Committee website. Comments can be submitted until the 17th of November.
This is Patrina reading from Isle of Wight Radio. Plans revealed for more than 200 homes near St Mary's Hospital. Two Isle of Wight housing providers have reaffirmed their commitment to build a major affordable housing development on the edge of Newport. New plans have been recently unveiled by Captiva Homes and Sovereign Network Group to develop Acorn Farm, a Horsebridge Hill near St Mary's Hospital. In total, 203 houses and flats are proposed, 72 flats for key workers and 101 homes for the open market. Sovereign is on the verge of securing 30 million, which two companies hope can be used to make the 101 homes designated as affordable. The majority could be socially rented properties, with the remainder being shared ownership opportunities. It is thought the first properties could be delivered in the next 2 years. Legally, the funding cannot be handed over until planning permission is granted and a contract is signed, but Captiva says the Housing Association has board approval for the funding. Sovereign has acknowledged the current shortage of affordable houses on the island, has committed to creating more sustainable homes. Jenny Grote, Assistant Director of New Business Growth for Sovereign, said, working with Captiva, they have been able to design a mix of affordable housing they believe is desperately needed. Captiva's Chief Executive, Ian Delaney, said the properties could be a meaningful step forward in delivering affordable home for islanders. The island developers also said it was the first scheme in a long time that could deliver sustainable, manageable, energy-efficient, affordable homes on the island. Having listened to local community needs, Captiva says it has incorporated a play park in plans and proposed the homes would be in a range of sizes and tenures to make them more accessible for islanders. It has also worked with the next door Isle of Wight NH Trust to create a cycle and footpath network which will run through Horsebridge Hill to Dodner Lane, opening up the link to the Newport Cows cycle path. Captiva is looking for feedback on its plans for Acorn Farm, which can be submitted through a consultation on its website, acornfarmnewport.co.uk. You can view the plans on the Isle of Wight Council's planning register. Comments can now be submitted until November 3rd.
This article is read by Howard and is from the Island Echo and is to do with Apley Tower. The vital work to restore Ryde's Apley Tower to its former glory is to begin in November. Stoneham Construction has been appointed to undertake the renovations, working alongside architect Sean McMillan of Elmstone Architectural. For a period, there will be restricted access to the area surrounding the tower, but the work will also create an opportunity for students to visit the tower to learn about the specialist skills involved in heritage building restoration. The iconic landmark in Ryde has been guaranteed a safe future thanks to a heritage lottery grant. Natural Enterprise, working in partnership with Ryde Town and Isle of Wight councils, secured the funding to ensure the much-loved building may be enjoyed by both the local community and holidaymakers for years to come. Natural Enterprise Chairman Brian Friend said, "We're delighted to be moving to the next stage to see the tower reopen in 2024. We're also pleased to be able to provide students with a chance to benefit from the work being undertaken." David Harris, Director, Stoneham Construction Limited, added, "We're delighted to bring the work of our skilled craftsmen to this restoration project and assist in the delivery of this iconic landmark on Ryde's seafront for future generations to enjoy." It's anticipated that the restorations will be complete by next June, when Moncton Arts will be opening an art gallery and offer free access to the top of the tower. There will also be 3 exhibitions about the tower's history, changes to the views from the tower, and how it features in local tourism. For more information about the project, or to book a guided visit or presentation for your group, contact Rachel at naturaltalententerprise.co.uk.
Isle of Wight Police and Public receive Area Commanders Awards for local service from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Joyce. Tributes have been paid to the achievements of officers and staff who have delivered exceptional local policing on the Isle of Wight. On Thursday, October 19th, Superintendent Rob Mitchell was joined at Newport Congregational Church by Chief Constable Scott Chilton, His Majesty's Vice Lord Lieutenant, Brigadier Maurice Sheen, and High Sheriff for the Isle of Wight, Mrs. Dawn Haig Thomas. A total of 24 officers, 4 members of police staff, and 3 members of the public were recognised across a variety of ranks and roles for awards, including long service awards, Chief Constable commendations, and Area Commander certificates. The recipients range from those who demonstrated the relentless pursuit of criminals on the front line to those circumstances where exceptional local policing was supported and victims of crime were put at the heart of police work. The Isle of Wight College was recognised for the support it provided to the police cadets on the island, and the Fighting Cocks was thanked for the welfare support it had provided to multi-agency training exercises and police operations. The latter saw meals and other services were required for those working long hours. Speaking after the ceremony, Chief Constable Scott Chilton said, "I'm so proud of all the officers and staff that have received awards for some breathtaking acts of bravery and brilliant police work. It's about keeping people safe and making people feel safe. All the awards have been incredible and reflect our 3 priorities in terms of delivering brilliant local policing, making sure that we put victims first and relentlessly pursuing criminals."
This is Michael reading from Isle of Wight Radio. Councillor slams heartbreaking military road rescue plan refusal. The lack of vision or action to preserve this coastal route by local and national government is heartbreaking. A councillor has slammed the Isle of Wight Council and the government for not doing enough to save the iconic military road after plans to shore up a section were refused last week. Councillor Nick Stewart, the representative for Bryston, Kelbourne and Shellfleet, was among those of the council's planning committee to reject Island Road's proposal for a 26-metre long wall with piles drilled 21 metres into the ground between Brook and Hanover Point. He said the plans were deeply and fundamentally flawed, as it would damage a nationally important landscape and environment, while only saving the road for a few more years. Councillor Stewart said it was right to refuse the plans, but he still despaired and found it shocking that there was no Plan B. Since the refusal, the Isle of Wight Council has said it currently has no plans to secure the road, which in some places is just metres away from the cliff edge. Work was ongoing, Council Leader Phil Jordan said, to find a suitable, viable and sustainable option to maintain the road, but there was no time frame as to when that could be. Councillor Stewart joined the authority last year and said he joined a multi-party meeting with local and central government organisations, but it had been lots of hot air and hand-wringing with still no outcome. He said the key point is money, and given central government has spent years reducing support to our council while loading on new responsibilities and time-consuming initiatives, it should cough up the cash now. The road was built to protect the island and southern England from invasion. Now central government seem happy for it to vanish into the waves. Not a great look for global Britain. Councillor Stewart also highlighted the military road was an attraction for visitors from all around the world, but also proved to be a vital route for islanders. He said the damage that would be done to the island's image and attractiveness in the eyes of tourists should make saving the road a priority, let alone the direct economic and critical impact it would have on locals.
This is Patrina reading from Isle of Wight Radio. Litany of scan warnings issued for Isle of Wight. Several scan alerts have been issued for the Isle of Wight. Trading Standards has listed the following scams as ones to be aware of. World Cup lottery claims. A few residents have received a scam letter telling them they have won £900,000 in the FIFA World Cup lottery programme. The letter contains reference numbers for legitimacy. It mentions lots of organisations that all sound very genuine and puts pressure on the recipient to respond or lose out. They give telephone numbers which will probably be premium rate and will inevitably charge you an admin fee to release the money, which will never come. This is a classic scam. Remember, if you haven't bought a ticket, you can't win, and you should never have to pay money to win money. Tax rebate scam. There are reports of scam phone calls advising residents they have tax rebates on previous collected PPI claim, and that a cheque will be delivered the following week in a yellow envelope with £200 vouchers from PaySafe and the caller applying pressure. Do not respond to these scam calls. This is courier fraud, which is currently on the increase in the south. Anyone who asks you to purchase a voucher to receive some kind of financial payment will be a scammer. TV license emails. Be wary of emails purporting to be from TV license. If you check the sender's email, you will see that it isn't a genuine one. Never click on links in emails asking you to set up or amend payment details. Friend needs a favour. Be aware of emails purporting to be from a friend or somebody in your email address book. The latest one states that your friend will be unable to speak over the phone as they have laryngitis, but need to ask you a favour. The scammers are using this ruse so that you won't ring your friend to confirm that it's them. Never respond to an email from a friend asking for a favour. Pick up the phone and ring them. Insulation and electricity scams. More reports of phone calls checking up on insulation and electricity usage, using our concerns over heating costs at this time of year to try to scam us into paying for insulation, etc. Do not engage with anyone who has called you out of the blue, and do not allow them to carry out a survey on your property. If you are concerned about making your home more energy efficient, contact the Footprint Trust in Newport for advice. Facebook sites. Be cautious when buying items on island Facebook sites. Scammers will clone, hack, or set up fake accounts offering items for sale or even for free, but will then try to take a delivery charge via bank transfer. Do some research, go and see the item, check out the seller, and if something seems a bit strange, don't proceed. Amazon scam. Scammers are using large organisations for legitimacy, and Amazon seems to be a favourite. A resident has reported that he received a scam call from them asking for money owed. Do not respond to these calls. Amazon will never contact you in this way.
This is the second part of the Talking News read by John
and Imelda.
We begin with more news items taken from the County Press and the Observer. Leaves trail of destruction by Laurie Little. Questions are being asked about the effectiveness of the £5 million flood defences at Monkton Mead in Ryde after the floodgates were breached on Wednesday, causing flooding to nearby homes and businesses. The scheme was completed in 2019 to reduce the risk of flood to more than 300 properties in Ryde. Some flood defence boards were in place on Wednesday morning, but not to capacity. Councillor Phil Jordan, leader of the Isle of Wight Council, has now called for an urgent review. He said, "I am informed that failure to close the Simeon Park gates in good time has added to the problem of flooding in and around the Strand and Monkton Mead. We are pressing the Environment Agency for straight answers, as this simple flood prevention action falls under their operational remit." The County Press has contacted the Environment Agency for comment.
And this one goes under the title of Swamped. It looks like a jungle river, but this shocking scene shows flooding on a residential road in Newport. The Isle of Wight was hit with up to 120 millimetres of rain, falling in a 24-hour period on Wednesday. Major roads were closed, shops and businesses severely flooded, and questions have been asked about the effectiveness of the £5 million flood defences in Simon Recreation in Ryde. And it continues this, Laurie Little. Devastating floods hit the island on Wednesday, leaving homes and businesses underwater and with significant damage. There is help available for those who need it. The Isle of Wight Council's contact centre has call handlers available to provide emergency advice and guidance on flooding to the public. Anyone needing more information and signposting to support can call 01983 823 111. Southern Water was on standby to support any households that experienced a loss of pressure after the impact and had advice on its website. Isle of Wight MP Bob Seeley issued the following advice. Flooded households in affected areas can apply for up to £500 to give cash quickly to help with immediate costs. Households and businesses significantly affected by recent flooding will be eligible for 100% council tax and business rates relief for at least 3 months. Small to medium-sized businesses in affected areas will be eligible for up to $2,500 from the Business Recovery Grant to help them return quickly to business as usual. Eligible flood-hit property owners will be able to apply for up to £5,000 to help make their homes and businesses more resilient to future flooding via the Property Flood Resilience Repair Grant Scheme. The support will be made available through a scheme known as the Flood Recovery Framework, which is used in exceptional circumstances to support councils and communities following severe flooding. Further details on eligibility and how to apply will be announced. The county press was live blogging the flood and its impact.
Toddler in front seat during police chase by a court reporter. With his 18-month-old child in the front seat of his BMW car, a drug driver who drove erratically was chased by police on a busy road. Cameron Goodman Wright of Prince Street, Ryde, admitted drug driving and failing to stop when a police officer directed him to do so on June the 11th. At 11:30 a.m. that day, police in an unmarked car on Brading Road, heading towards Tesco, noticed Goodman Wright driving erratically in the opposite direction, U-turned and followed him, signalling for him to stop. When Goodman Wright reacted by accelerating away, police activated their lights, but he continued to drive on, said Lauren Stone, prosecuting at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. At Westridge Garage, Goodman Wright pulled in briefly, but as the police approached, he drove on at speed along Smallbrook Lane and was chased until he eventually pulled over. Police found a toddler strapped into the front passenger seat, and there was a strong smell of cannabis in the car. Goodman Wright failed a roadside drugs test for cannabis. At Newport Police Station, he provided a reading of 4.1 Ug/L of the cannabis metabolite THC. The legal limit is 2. In 2020, Goodman Wright was banned from driving for 2 years as a, quote, totter, unquote, having built up penalty points. Miss Stone told the bench Goodman Wright's offending was aggravated by the fact he was evading the police. There was bad driving and, most seriously, had a child passenger. Magistrates said another aggravating factor was the time of day. For Goodman Wright, Michael McGoldrick said his client accepted he had his 18-month-old child in the front of his car, but did not accept the police were signalling for him to stop, claiming he stopped at Westridge to allow the police to pass, not realising they were chasing him. Goodman Wright also contradicted the police's version by claiming he drove at 20 miles per hour along Smallbrook Lane rather than at speed, said Mr. McGoldrick. Magistrates ordered a probation report prior to sentencing on November the 3rd. Goodman Wright was handed an interim driving ban.
New Croft Ale House one step closer. Fancy a pint? A new Croft Ale bar on the island is a step closer. The Island Life Croft Brewery is looking to open its first public location on Clarence Road in East Cowes. A licence was approved earlier in the year for the Croft Ale Brewery to serve alcohol, but now it must clear the final hurdle in getting planning permission to officially open. It currently operates from the back room of a house further down Clarence Road, but is looking to expand into what used to be an old bric-a-brac store, the Old Curiosity Shop. For it to open, permission needs to be granted by the Isle of Wight Council to turn it from retail use into an alehouse. The brewery's owner, Glenn Johnson, has previously said that he would like to refit the shop space, featuring wood and exposed brick with stylish industrial lighting. Environmental health officers have requested details of sound insulation work be submitted for the building so residents in the flats above and near the bar are not disturbed. You can view the plans 23/01677//full FUL on the Isle of Wight Council's planning register. Comments can be submitted until November the 17th.
Flies and one-star hygiene at Yacht Club by Louise Hill. Warm scallops, flies in the kitchen and a poor standard of hygiene are among the reasons a yacht club has been slammed with a lowly one-star food hygiene rating. Major improvement is necessary for the Sea View Yacht Club on Sea View's Esplanade, the Isle of Wight Council has determined, after environmental health officers inspected its kitchen in August. The outcome has recently been published by the Council, and the report highlights food safety and standards which need improving. James Crofts, Sea View Yacht Club Secretary, said they accepted the issues inspectors found and have sought to remedy them, also confirming the yacht club will be seeking a re-inspection. At the time of the inspection, officers saw a, quote, large number, unquote, of flies in the kitchen, as well as scallops being stored on the work surface. Staff told inspectors the scallops should have been stored in the fridge and expected them to be below 8 degrees centigrade, but those on the side were reading at 13.7 degrees centigrade. The scallops, which are deemed a high-risk food, were disposed of during the inspection. The general standard of hygiene was poor in some areas, the inspectors said, with mouldy seals on fridges and freezers, cobwebs above the pizza oven, and the oven was dirty with old food debris. The top of the vacuum packer was also dirty. One oven was seen leaking water onto the floor. Food was found by inspectors to be past its use-by date, and some items stored in the freezers, like lobster, were not labelled at all. Bacon, applewood, cheese, vegan mayonnaise and blended avocado were all found to be 2 days past their use-by date. Salami, Cornish ham, gallibagger, parmesan and vegetable sausages were all also 1 day out of date. Some sauces and condiments which required refrigeration after being opened were being stored at an ambient temperature. Some food in the fridges was uncovered, which inspectors said presented a contamination risk.
Animal playtime buoyed by old rings. Lions and lemurs at the Island Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary have been thrown a playtime lifeline thanks to the donation of old life buoys for the animals to enjoy from Whitelink. The life-saving rings were previously on board the Lymington-Yarmouth ferry White Sun, but have now been replaced with new ones. Having previously donated old mooring lines to the Sandown attraction, Whitelink was keen to give the rings a new home too, and they were gratefully received. The attraction animal manager Mark Fox said, "We're always looking for ways to enrich our animals' lives. The life rings provide the perfect swings for the lemurs and are ideal scratching and chewing toys for the lions." Whitelink's Phil Delaney said, "We're really pleased White Sun's old life rings have been put to good use at the sanctuary rather than going to landfill. We hope the rings provide them with many hours of fun."
Striving for a More Inclusive Island by Leanne Ponferrada. Equals Isle of Wight have secured funding from the Isle of Wight Council to continue their Green Time activities for another year. Beginning in March 2005, Equals Isle of Wight gained charitable status on January 23, 2021. They strive to ensure the Isle of Wight will become an even more inclusive, supportive and friendly place to live, work and visit for all people. Green Time includes nature-involved endeavours open to everyone, particularly ethnic minorities. Recently, they have worked across Sandown Bay, Shanklin Bay and Firestone Copse. As documented by the 2021 census, 97% of Isle of Wight residents identified as white. Making up 3% of the population, some ethnic and religious minorities describe island life as, quote, isolating, unquote, and, quote, difficult, unquote. However, according to Mind.org UK, only 30% of ethnic minority communities feel comfortable talking about their thoughts and feelings. Shireen Yarfabasi, a Year 12 student at the Isle Sixth Form, shared a heartfelt story. Quote, "It was a learning curve getting used to being different, as I was the only person of colour in my year. Growing up, I realised our cultures were different. I found it difficult to relate with anyone at school, which made me feel isolated. I thought something was wrong with me," unquote. Organisations are willing to tackle this. Equals Isle of Wight are a prime example. Apart from aiding their local communities, Equals Isle of Wight benefits those working alongside them. Niviera Piper, committee member of Equals Isle of Wight, described it as a, quote, safe place, unquote, and a, quote, melting pot to integrate with other people, unquote. Group members Lauren Thomas and Cecilia Shaw shared the joy of learning other cultures with Lauren, describing them as lifelong lessons worthy of embracing. Mark Cox, chair of Equals Isle of Wight, expressed his willingness to include local youth in their projects, closing the gap between generations. Before COVID-19, Equals Isle of Wight had the opportunity to visit primary schools to teach cultural recipes. In the foreseeable future, Equals Isle of Wight wishes to establish contact with the Isle of Wight Youth Council, begin a youth club and expand its membership. The county press is signed up to the Young Reporter scheme, giving young people the chance to write for their local newspaper. Leanne Ponferrada is a Christ the King College student.
Golf course integral to future of Bay Area. A popular attraction can plan for the future. After concerns were raised, it would block the regeneration of Yaverland and the Bay Area if a new lease was granted. A 5-year lease is now in the process of being signed for Brown's Golf Course between the Isle of Wight Council and the new tenant, Paul Saville, who took over the attraction in the summer. The decision to lease the attraction for 5 years came under fire recently from a group of councillors who feared it could block the regeneration plans of the wider Culvin Parade and Yammerland area as being designed in the Bay Place plan. Conservative councillor Michael Beston, Paul Brading, Warren Dew, Tig Outlaw, Chris Quirk, Joe Robinson and Ian Ward, along with Labour's Richard Quigley, said the site was central to the wider area's regeneration. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans insisted it would not do anything to harm the future of the area or jeopardise any plans currently being worked up as part of the Bay Place plan. Speaking at the meeting last week, Councillor Joan Evans, the Cabinet Member for Regeneration, said she would not scooper the long-term projects in that pivotal part of Southdown, which is why the Council had written a 6-month break clause into the lease. She said they knew how long plans take to draw in funding, so nothing was going to happen overnight. But in the meantime, the very valuable, well-loved asset was open. An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson has confirmed the approval of the lease for Browns is now going ahead, and legal terms have been instructed to proceed as plans. Councillor Chris Quirk, a Shanklin councillor, says Browns is integral to the Bay Place plan, and what happens with the site is key to lots of parts of the regeneration plan. He said the lease decision was minor, but it affected the whole Bay Area and should have been discussed with the town and parish councils who are taking part in the Bay Place plan. Councillor Quigley withdrew his support for the challenge, saying he was happy with the deal and it protects the site, allowing a business to operate there.
Station set for upgrade. An island train station built in the mid-1800s could be getting modern upgrades. Plans have been submitted to the Isle of Wight Council to install train time displays and an audio announcement system at the Grade 2 listed Brading railway station. It currently has neither. Island Line trains run through the station, calling at Brading on its way from Shanklin to Ryde. The electronic displays could be placed along the platforms and could tell awaiting passengers how long it is until the next train arrives, as is now common at other stations. Transdata Management behind the plans say the new installation aims to preserve the historic context of the station. The cabinet needed to hide the cabling for the audio system and display could be put next to the station master's office on platform 1. The station opened in 1864 and has had trains calling at it ever since, with more regular trains running every half hour following the major investment in Island Line in 2019. You can view the plans 23/01647/LBC on the Isle of Wight Council's planning register. Comments can be submitted until November the 3rd.
Locals rail against plans for Old Estate. The latest redevelopment plans for the historic East Dean estate have again been criticised as an overdevelopment, with residents raising major safety concerns. In an updated scheme unveiled last month, Robert Camping of Camping Property is seeking permission to turn the Grade 2 former Children's Activity Centre and wedding venue in Bonchurch into an apart hotel with 6 apartments and a commercial kitchen. The number of eco lodges proposed has been slashed in half, putting 8 in the protected woodlands and refurnishing an old swimming pool. Many locals commenting on the scheme feel the revised proposals fail to address the main issues raised when the plans were first submitted in December last year. He said the proposed development represents an excessive threat to the environment. An overspill parking area on a lower field is still included in the plans, despite being omitted from some documents, which would be assessed on a narrow single-track road. As a popular walkway for walkers, residents feel additional traffic would add intolerable strain to the village and increase the risk of pedestrians, making it feel unsafe. Others say parking in the lower field, which is known for ground movement, would further affect land stability and have a detrimental impact on the near 11th century church. Another commentator said they understood a sympathetic restoration is needed for the preservation of East Dean, and any plans should complement its unique setting, not compromise it. They felt it was a massive overdevelopment which did not bring any advantages to the village. The eco-lodges would destroy the diverse population of protected and unprotected wildlife by removing their habitat, another commentator said. There are no comments in favour of the development since the revised plans have been submitted.
School takes pride in good inspection. by Louise Hill. Pupils are keen and enthusiastic in lessons and want to learn, are the glowing words in an Ofsted inspection which helped a primary school keep its good rating. Haylands Primary School on the outskirts of Ryde was visited by the government's education watchdog at the start of the new school year in September. The recently published report has highlighted the school's positive environment, praising staff and pupils after a period of considerable change, but saw one area where improvements could still be made. Inspectors said in some subjects there was no clear way of knowing how well pupils were learning or achieving because consistent assessment processes had not been fully established. Despite that, Ofsted said there are high aspirations for all pupils to achieve well and to enjoy learning a clearly sequenced curriculum from preschool to Year 6, which is relevant to them. The inspectors said there was a palpable air of excitement over the recent curriculum changes, which had been based on careful thought about what pupils need to be successful. Overall, pupils are proud of their friendly school, the report said, where the children celebrate diversity and difference, showing acceptance and empathy towards others. Pupils live up to the high expectations of how they should behave, resulting in a calm and respectful school atmosphere. The children also know there are trusted adults who keep them safe and can help them if they have any worries. Pupils with special education needs are well supported at Haylands, the inspectors said, as there are robust systems in place to identify these pupils and include them fully in the life of the school. In the school's newsletter, head teacher Katrina Shah, who was appointed in January, said she was incredibly proud of pupils and their impeccable behaviour, confidence in their learning and sheer joy at belonging to their school, which shone through in the inspection. Ms. Shah said she was also proud of the staff and governors at Haylands, as the report truly reflects the dedication and commitment they have to support the pupils to be the best they can be.
College unveils fast-track GCSEs. The Isle of Wight College has unveiled two new educational programmes aiming to fast-track students to achieve their English and Maths qualifications. The college has announced the Fast Track Initiative for GCSE English and Maths, a comprehensive 20-week course, and the Fast Track programme for Functional Skills English and Maths. A comprehensive 24-week curriculum will be available to start in January. Both programmes aim to offer students an accelerated and dynamic route to improve their language and mathematical abilities, perfect for those requiring those qualifications for a September 2024 start in higher education. The 20-week GCSE English and Maths course caters to individuals aiming to achieve a Grade 4. Prospective students applying for the January start classes will undergo an assessment to determine their readiness and identify any skill gaps. To find out more, visit the Isle of Wight College website.
Woman arrested after car rampage by Zach Saunders. The quiet rural village of Knighton was left in shock on Saturday morning when at least 20 vehicles were damaged with a weapon thought to be a baseball bat. The rampage through several roads including Chatfield Road, Rectory Road, Church Street and Blackgang Road happened before 8:30 a.m. Villagers had to go out to cover up the smashed windows amid heavy rains so the weather didn't cause further damage. One woman inspecting the damage to her car told the county press she just thought it was really sad. Police arrested a 33-year-old woman from Knighton on suspicion of criminal damage and possession of an offensive weapon. She has been released pending further inquiries.
Toilets closure due to vandalism. Vandals have trashed and set fire inside cubicles at New Road Toilets in Lake, and the facility has now been closed. The future of the amenity will be discussed by Lake Parish Council, but councillors intend a proposed new build will go ahead. Parish Council Chair Councillor Paul Bradding said, "Antisocial behaviour and vandalism at New Road Toilets has cost Lake residents thousands of pounds, and the latest incident posed a serious fire risk to people and the building, and if the fire took hold, could have threatened neighbouring properties. We have listened to the concern of residents, and within the limited resources of the council, we have had to prioritise the replacement of New Road toilets within the next 6 months, subject to the loan, but recognise this has budget implication for 2024 onwards." Vice Chair Adrian Whittaker said the matter had been reported to the police. Lake Parish Council has recently replaced the public toilets at Lake Cliff Gardens, which has seen a reduction in antisocial behaviour there. It has already submitted a loan application to replace the New Road facility in response to the ongoing vandalism.
Appeal for sponsors to help keep gift card scheme afloat by Louise Hill. The future of a scheme which supports island businesses is looking uncertain. Town, parish and community councils are being asked to financially support the White Gift Card, WGC, to keep it going. The WGC was introduced by the Isle of Wight Council in October 2020 as a way of rebooting the island's economy after the first wave of the COVID pandemic. Like a gift voucher, the WGC can be spent in nearly 140 island shops, restaurants, beauty spas or hotels, either online or in store. More than 4,230 have been sold as of June 2023 in the years it has been running, and nearly £900,000 had been loaded onto those cards to be spent at island retailers, cafes, beauty spas, attractions or hotels. But in a letter to the smaller councils, the Isle of Wight Council's former Assistant Regeneration Director, Ashley Curzon, explained the contract with those behind the WGC, Town and City Gift Cards / Myconex, was coming to an end. He said to continue the WGC, it needs £10,500 a year for a 3-year programme, with the cash coming from a range of sponsors. It was hoped each sponsor could pay £1,500 a year. The money would be used to set up and redesign the physical cards, support with banking fees and payment processing fees and marketing. If it was agreed, the large stock of display cards with the branding of the previous sponsors could still be used in the years to come. That would lower the total cost needed from each sponsor to around £1,285 a year. The Isle of Wight Council has confirmed all WGCs are still valid while discussions are ongoing, and if it were to be discontinued, there would be a notice period for users. Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council was approached by the Isle of Wight Council and discussed the matter at its meeting earlier in the month. The Community Council decided to find out more information about what was being asked before it made a decision.
And the final news item is a cheer for postboxes get into the Halloween spirit. Halloween is upon us, and the Isle of Wight is getting in the spooky spirit. Frighteningly good post office toppers have started appearing around the island. A purple topper, which has popped up outside the co-op in Carisbrooke, depicts an impressive scary spider. Pumpkins, ghouls and cats appear on one along Cedars Road, Carisbrooke. At Kinchington Road, Carisbrooke, a topper shows handicraft pumpkins and a witch. Bats and ghosts feature on a Halloween topper on Sandown Road Lake. And in Northwood, islanders can see a spooktacular spider and more pumpkins. We love your handicraft brilliant toppers. If we missed one, please let us know and send your pictures to editor@iwcp.co.uk.
We now have White Memories and Nostalgia. All Happening in the 60s by Alan Stroud. Until well in the 1960s, the county press ran a feature called Town and County Notes, a column filled with all manner of news items ranging from the sublime to the ridiculous. These quirky entries are from the early 1960s. Naming a place Hassels on an island full of rural accents was tempting fate, and in October 1960, dropped H's led to a name change Japan. Tongue-in-cheek, the county press reported, quote, following a petition signed by all the residents of Hassels on Pan Estate, Newport, the name is to be changed to Downs View. Outside the Duke of York pub in Cowes was an underground toilet some older readers may remember. Above ground was an area of thick glass tiles set into the pavement, which then became the ceiling once down in the toilet. While it was an object of fascination to local boys, Cowes Council did not approve. In October 1960, the county press reported, a plan to close the underground public conveniences at Mill Hill Road, Cowes, was favoured by councillors. The toilet was described as a noisome spot and a monstrosity. The toilets were closed and filled in 1962. In May of 1962, a tomato plant made the news. Quote, a single plant 6 foot 6 inches high, grown by Mr. Brown of Binstead Nurseries, yielded 83 pounds of tomatoes, unquote. Cinema attendance plummeted nationwide following the arrival of television in the 1950s. In September 1962, island closures began. 4 cinemas will close next Saturday: the Regent, Freshwater, the Rex Ventnor, the Queen Sandown and the Scala Ride, leaving the Commodore Ride, the Medina and Savoy Newport, the Regal Shanklin and the Rivoli Sandown. It was obviously a quiet news week in October 1962. Quote, a bulge the size of a cricket ball, which developed in the tarmac in Western Road, Totland Bay, was caused by a growing mushroom, which finally forced its way through on Monday, unquote. It was just as quiet in November 1962. 2 sailors who found 6 shillings threepence in the coin box in the telephone kiosk near the Freemasons Hotel, Ventnor, left the money with the licensee, Mr. George Burton, to be claimed.
And in February of 1964, Mrs. Dew Bailey of Ryde was not happy with what she saw at Newport Market. She wrote to the editor, I wish to show my disapproval of the way pigs are marked in Newport Market. 2 relatives were with me there on February the 10th, and we were disgusted with the way the pigs were treated. I know pigs squeal a lot, but I'm sure these were being hurt. The holes punched in their ears were as big as sixpences, and the amount of blood over the pigs and on the ground was terrible. Surely there is a more humane way of marking these creatures. It is not very pleasant sight for children who are always in the market." And the end quote there. In August 1964, another correspondent, Mr. Pritchard of London, was also not happy. "I would like to draw attention to the Brading Roman Villa, which my wife and I visited while on holiday. We have never been so disappointed at seeing an ancient monument so neglected. After spending 3 hours to find it, we eventually came across a collection of rusty tin hats overgrown with weeds. We were greeted by an attendant who said 3 shillings, with no please or thank you. What conclusion we were supposed to draw from exhibits ladled animal bones, tiles, charred wood, and so forth, we cannot imagine. The cases were thick with dust, and the whole place was depressing. This view was shared by several people we met outside." By 1965, the genie of sexual liberation had begun to pop out of the bottle. On the island, efforts were made to put the cork back in. Under the headline, "Book Banned at Sandown," the county press reported, "Sandown Shanklin's Public Library Committee decided on Monday to withdraw the book, A Singular Man, by J.P. Donlevy, from the libraries in both towns." Mr. Wilcox, clerk, read a letter of complaint in which Mrs. Longmeat of Shanklin described the book as unsuitable for young people. Mr. Holmes, chairman, who had read the book, said if this one was withdrawn, the committee would have to take 75% of the books off the shelves. Mr. Barber, the vice chairman, disagreed, describing the book as a series of descriptions of sexual behaviour. Miss White, the librarian, said there had been a good demand for the book, mainly from the young moderns. It was agreed to remove the book. And finally, in September 1965, Island Notes reported, "East Cowes man swallows domino Michael Dennis, 28, a ship's plater, was the victim of an unusual mishap in the Victoria Taverns, East Cowes, on Saturday. He knew that the 6-1 domino had dropped into his pint of mild ale, but when he drank up, he inadvertently swallowed the domino. He was taken to St Mary's Hospital, where following an X-ray, the domino was retrieved by a surgeon who inserted a tube down his throat." On that note, we'll say cheers.
High Street Sign of the Times by Sarah Burdett. Our high streets are changing, as I'm sure you will have noticed. Many of the major chain stores have moved out to the edges of town as our shopping habits have changed. Today the car reigns supreme, despite all we think about global warming and using public transport. However, within the town centres, the old buildings still exist, although some are now in a poor state if they've been left empty. The decorative work on them is worth a closer look. The window size grew in the late 19th century as it became easier to make large sheets of plate glass. The surround for this glass sometimes used classical features, pillars with fancy leafwork, capitals or Romanesque pediment details. Some of this was wood and other parts were in plasterwork stucco. Painting schemes picked out the detail. While time cost money, the shop owner needed to make his shop stand out. The entrance was important. There are some finely detailed, permanently tiled doormats. These often show the names of the shop, a name long since gone from the fascia board. Black and white tiles gave a crisp, clean image. Of course, these tiles would be swept and scrubbed daily. The pavement would also be swept by the shop staff every day. Below the window there might be a long brass plate with the name of the firm. International stores, the grocers, had this. It was the job of the grocery delivery boy to polish this up every morning as soon as he arrived.
There was an international store in every town on the island, and they had the same shop fronts everywhere. Kindly, they also took several photographs of the staff standing outside. Unfortunately, few of these dated, and people did not list who the staff were. We're all guilty of this, as we know who is in our photographs, but we should consider dating a few of those old photographs in the back of the drawer and writing down who the people are. It would greatly help future historians. A fascia board above the windows is the one place where occasionally we can still see some artistry. The sign writer still has to work to do, although plastic and printed work is taking over. To look at a row of small Edwardian or late Victorian shops, each with their signboards bringing back some history to the town. Better still, when each of these is still occupied as a going concern. Some signboards were more elaborate. Both Ray's, the grocers, and international stores had wonderful black and gold glass-fronted name boards above the windows. They looked very classy and had the advantage of not requiring repainting every couple of years. Ray's completed with international stores for our custom. International stores were throughout Britain. They had a cooked meat and cheese counter, solid dry provisions, and tins of food just the same. But Ray's was owned by islanders, and the profit made stayed on the island.
And now we have My View by Imogen Chew. Gateways need to be welcoming. Hidden among the raft of headlines spread across the newspapers before, during and after the Conservative Party conference was a little gem of news for the Isle of Wight. Ryde is one of 55 towns across the country to receive funds as part of a government initiative to help regenerate the High Street and tackle antisocial behaviour if it all goes ahead. Ryde is one of 55 towns across the country to receive funds as part of a government initiative to help regenerate the High Street and tackle antisocial behaviour. If it all goes ahead, the seaside town should receive 20 million over a 10-year period. It's not known exactly what the money will be used for, but our MP Bob Seeley said there were a, quote, number of options, unquote, and that he would ensure it was used wisely and for the benefit of the wider island community. This is fantastic news. Ryde has already benefited from the regeneration project aimed at improving the area between the pier and the beach, and while there is still work to do, the town dubbed the Gateway to the island has already been somewhat transformed. With so many visitors coming through Ryde on their journey to our lovely island, I'm sure you'll agree it's worth the investment. The only thing missing now is a large, colourful but tasteful sign that reads, in the words of Derek Sandy, "Welcome to the Isle of Wight." I'm half joking, but not really. Ryde's improvement had me thinking about all of our Isle of Wight gateways and the first impression visitors are given. The result? Not great. In East Cowes, passengers driving off the car ferry first see the back of a red funnel sign and the ferry terminal car park. The same is true for Whitelink's terminal in Fishbourne and the Redjet terminal in Cowes, where getting collected by car is a battle you rarely win. While the ferry port at Yarmouth is somewhat prettier, there is still no proud and bold sign welcoming visitors to the island, or giving them an idea of what we are about. I couldn't say for sure, but we must be one of the only counties in the country which doesn't blow their own trumpet at their main gateways to tourists. Imagine a large mural on the fence of the White Link car park at Fishbourne. Visitors could take in paintings of the music stars to play here, our top Isle of Wight cuisine, crab, tomatoes, famous people with a connection to our lovely island, and some iconic shots such as the Needles, Cowes Week boats and Sandown Pier. It would give them something to look at as they struggle with their clutch, queuing up the hill to the exit. Smaller versions could be made for the other gateways. A banner could be strung on Ryde Pier for drivers and pedestrians alike, and a large sign could be put near the bottom of the red funnel ramp in East Cowes. It's a little thing, but our gateways and what they say about our island is important. We should find a way to excite tourists, display what we are proud of, and simply say, "Welcome to the Isle of Wight."
And now, for my view, we go over to Bob Seeley. Education is a success story in England. Reading in Year 5 is now amongst the best in the world, and the number good or outstanding schools in England has gone up from under 60 to near 80%. But on the island, councillors are failing pupils and parents. I fear the council may be failing in its legal duty to plan for school places. I have now raised this with ministers and in Parliament this week. I will be writing to the head of the council too. The reality is that head teachers say for the good of all kids, several very small schools must close. Nobody likes the idea of shutting schools, not least me, but worse is allowing schools to fail. Ultra-small schools can't provide the range of teaching for our young people's need. School funding is based on pupil numbers. Fewer pupils equal less funding. There are 200 plus vacant primary school places. The result is that some schools have too few pupils, while others are starved of funds. Many children are affected. Councillors have shilly-shallied twice over the summer. Letting schools collapse is cruel and is incompetent. Debts rack up. Teachers quit. Parents take their children out of school. I've bitten my tongue in recent years with this left-wing council, supported by Labour and Lib Dem councillors. I've done so because I have needed them outside so I can deliver the better deeds I believe the school deserves. But when councillors' indecisiveness damages children's education, I can't stay silent. I am happy as ever to work with councillors for the good of the island. I will support their actions if they make decisions, but they need to act in the interests of children and parents. The former Conservative administration took such action. That's why the West Wight now has fewer schools, but a brand new school, and full intakes predicted for 2023 to 4, 2024 to 5, and 2025 to 6. Alliance councillors need to listen to teachers' voices, and thus far they haven't. They are letting all of us down. It's unacceptable. I've demanded government get tough on Isle of Wight councillors. I will continue to hold their feet to the fire until they clearly fulfil their legal duties and make the right plans. Power means responsibility. They need to take responsibility, not shirk it. I am happy to work with them, but they need to listen and act.
We now have What's On? Big Screen Classical Christmas. World-renowned maestro of classical music, André Rieu, is bringing his holiday spirit to the silver screen this Christmas, and islanders will be able to watch it. Andre Rieu's White Christmas cinema event is coming to the big screen over the weekend of December 2nd and 3rd. On the island, the event will be shown at Cineworld Newport. Presented by Piece of Magic Entertainment, the event takes place within a decorated Christmas palace filled with snow, 2 ice rinks, picturesque winter scenes, romantic lighting, a red carpet, countless lights, 150 exquisite chandeliers, and over 50 Venetian candelabras. Andre said, "Christmas is a magical time for me, a season to share the love and beauty of music, creating unforgettable memories that will last a lifetime." The programme includes cherished classics such as Jingle Bells, Ave Maria, O Holy Night, Hallelujah, Sleigh Ride, and many more. You can buy tickets to watch the cinema event at www.andreincinemas.com.
And now the Medina Festival of Remembrance. Medina Marching Band is set to perform at Christ the King College next month, presenting its Festival of Remembrance event. It follows on from the official launch of the 2023 Poppy Appeal and will include performances from the Isle of Wight Highland Pipes and Drums and Rosy Sails. There will also be traditional act of remembrance with a drumhead service led by the Royal British Legion County Chaplain Reverend Weltley. This will feature standard bearers from the island's Royal British Legion branches, as well as representatives from other military and youth organisations. The event kick-starts at 7:30 p.m. on Friday, November the 10th. The event is now in its 3rd year and promises to be another moving evening, packed with entertainment, with all proceeds from the night going to the Royal British Legion Poppy Appeal. Tickets are available on Medina Marching Band's website.
We now have letters. Cancellation fee is appalling from Liz Mead of Ningwood. On Tuesday, October 17th at 5:05 p.m, I received a text message from Whitelink to say the ferry we had booked to travel on as foot passengers at 9:45 the following day was cancelled, as a new engine was required to be fitted on White Sky. They had moved us to the 13:05 ferry. The reason for our travelling was to meet up with some friends for our annual get-together for lunch, and something we'd been looking forward to for weeks, so the amended time was useless. I immediately contacted the Whitelink helpline, and all they could offer me was the 8:55 ferry, which I reluctantly accepted. We had agreed to meet friends in Lymington, who were going to drive us up to Newbury, where the lunch was taking place, and when I contacted them telling them of the new timings, they could not make it then, so it was either a question of sitting in the waiting area for over an hour, which would not have been ideal as my husband has medical issues, or cancelling the revised booking. We decided to cancel, so I tried to contact the helpline only to discover that they had closed. I immediately sent an email, only to receive a reply that it might take up to 5 days to answer. As soon as their helpline opened the next day at 0900 hours, after the 8:55 sailing had gone, I rang to explain the situation and to ask for a refund. I was told that a £5 cancellation fee would be charged and it would be referred to the boss. I think this is absolutely appalling, that because of their problems they are asking for a cancellation fee. Some of these friends we only see once a year, so we're very upset. Surely Whitelink must have known about having to replace an engine well in advance and could have notified us earlier, so we could have made other arrangements with Red Funnel. Yet again another sorry story about the ferries serving the island.
Our minds set over Millie Road. This is David van der Peer from Ventnor. I suspect your paper has had numerous correspondence with regard to the ongoing military road situation. Judging by what I have heard and read, not much is going to sway the Council and the National Trust. Their minds seem to have been set for years, and things have not gone too far for either side to show any sign of weakness. It would seem that they would rather the villagers and the villages, not to mention the narrow roads, be allowed to suffer. Doubtless house prices along these lanes will suffer greatly as well. Has anybody asked all the locals what they think? Or are their local councillors just making assumptions from what they have heard in the local? It would seem that Isle of Wight Council and National Trust are really not that interested in what's happening along the military road, and are taking the view that the longer they leave it, then more land will disappear, and therefore the headlines will read, "Sorry people, it's gone too far now, there's nothing we can do." So it's a case of spend no money now, so that we need not spend anything in the future. Thanks both. Destroy our island, why don't you? Very disappointed local.
Terrorism hits close to home, from Andy Osborne of Knighton. Dear editor, this past week we have all been reminded of the horrors of war and conflict. Sometimes it's hard to take it all in. But when I received the horrific news that 2 neighbours from Knighton had been killed in what is believed to have been a terrorist attack in Uganda, the sense of helplessness and grief was overwhelming. David Barlow and Celia Geyer, who had a second home in Knighton, had recently married in South Africa and were on their honeymoon. They regularly visited the island with their 2 dogs and enjoyed walks, cycling and mountain biking, and had made strong friendships with villagers. Celia, who was originally from South Africa, had recently completed a sponsored cycle ride across the Pyrenees. David, who had his own timber company in Berkshire, was also chairman of his local parish council in Hampstead Norreys, Berkshire. Whenever they came over to the island, they made a point of supporting Knighton's local shops and pubs, and were often seen frequenting the White Lion and Sam's Bar. We had often spoken of some of the common challenges of our 2 parish communities. We even joked about second homeowners, but they were genuine, generous and kind people who had decided to make a second home on the island, here in Knighton, amongst us. They will be missed terribly.
And this is in response from Bob Seeley. Thank you for Chris Locke's letter in the County Press, the 20th of the 10th, 23. He asks, where's the 6 million promised by Boris? Why people should trust me? And about the chain ferry. First, the money. It's funded a new crane and repairs to the Columbine Shipworks. The crane is big and blue and on the Medina in East Cowes. The money is also renovating Victoria Barracks next door, work ongoing. Second, why trust me? Because I keep my promise. I pledged a better deal and I'm delivering it. Third, the chain ferry. A previous left-wing council commissioned it before I became MP, but I agree it's a scandal.
A letter from Ralph Hulbert of East Cowes. Dear Editor, what a shame that your readers' letters adopted such a contrary view, both writing of genocide and interpreting the reaction of Israel to the latest barbaric attack on its civilian population by the Islamists of Gaza. Genocide? You mean, for example, killing over 500,000 people with airstrikes and chemical weapons? Oh wait, that was Syria. How about executing over 50,000 of its own citizens in the last 10 years? Oh wait, that was Iran. How about using nerve gas to kill 25,000 men, women and children? Oh, that was Iraq. 250,000 dead in a civil war. Lebanon. 200,000 dead in a civil war. Algeria. 250,000 dead in Yemen. Meanwhile, in 75 years, Israel has killed 25,000 so-called Palestinians, all as a result of attacks on Israel or Israelis.
Does my maths add up? This is the final letter we've got today. This is Graham Lascelles of Wootton. Please tell me I am wrong. Is the installation of slow-release water butts yet another meaningless soundbite and a total waste of millions of pounds? 2 recent sewage spills into Wootton Creek would suggest so. Basically, they will be kept half full, so their usual storage capacity, unless previously having watered the garden, is only 100 litres. A typical bungalow is, say, 7 by 7 metres, which is 49 square metres. 100 litres would fall on the roof with 2 millimetres rain, which is what, 5 minutes worth. So it would work for the first 5 minutes, beyond which it will not only have to drain 100% of the rain, but however slowly, also its storage. I hope someone has a better calculator than myself. So that's goodbye from Imelda. Have a lovely weekend. It looks as if it's going to be as wet as it has been, but best wishes to you.
And it's goodbye from John, also sending you his best wishes.
The BBC In Touch programme follows. There is no scaffolding news this week.
Hello, this is Lisa with an extra article on voting stations here on the Isle of Wight. The council have asked us to come back to them with any comments on any particular voting stations here on the island with regard to accessibility for visually impaired people. To be very clear, this is not the process of voting. This is access into the building and around the building. The actual process of voting we will pick up as a separate issue. But for now, if anybody has any comments back, the deadline is the 10th of November, and this is on access to individual polling stations around the island. Please do either give the office a call on 522205 or drop me an email on ceo@iwsb.org.uk. That is ceo@iwsb.org.uk with your comments about individual polling stations. Thank you, Lisa.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Just over 9 years ago, during an earlier eruption of violence in the Middle East, we introduced the In Touch audience to 2 totally blind women who made a very big impression on many of you. They lived on either side of one of the world's most troubled borders. Dalal al-Taji in the south of Gaza, Nar Amashang just north of the Israeli capital, Tel Aviv. The programme wasn't about the rights and wrongs of the long-running dispute between Israelis and Palestinians. That's been and is still being debated in more appropriate places. It was about the effect on blind people when they can no longer trust the physical environment in which they live, and where violence means that your circumstances can change abruptly at any moment. War, of course, can have this effect on anyone, blind or not, but the sudden changes are surely harder to interpret if you can't see what's going on around you. Later in this programme, sadly, we have to bring the story up to date. But first, here's a part of their discussion then which made such a deep impression on many listeners, starting with Na Amashang.
This time, the trouble has gotten close to home. In fact, rockets over our town and air raid sirens and us having to go to the bomb shelters.
As a visually impaired person, how do you get to know what's happening?
The siren is audible. So if we can hear it, and there were instances where we couldn't hear it, that's good. Then we have 90 seconds to get to our shelter. Now, people who are closer to the source of the trouble may have as little as 15 seconds. Now, sometimes if you're listening to the television, it flashes on the screen.
Which you might miss, presumably.
Which we might miss. I always worry about that. We are fortunate in that we actually have a shelter in our flat. Newer buildings have to have a shelter either in the flat or in the building. So, it's a matter of walking 10 feet. But I know that for other blind people, it's quite difficult because there is like a communal one in the building or maybe on the street or around the block. And 90 seconds sounds like a long time for some people, but it's actually not a very long time.
And what would happen if you were out?
Well, this is the thing. Obviously, before we left, we kind of stopped going out except for very, very necessary things because I didn't want to be caught out and not know where to go. And, it's very, very hard to just follow other people or to see signs or things like that. It was very disruptive. It's all consuming. It really is.
And Dalal, what about you? What about warnings?
Actually, we don't have the warnings. We don't have sirens like what Naama is talking about. We just hear the bombing. And because I've been living in Gaza for around 18 years now, and we've seen 2 wars before that. And I've been living in Lebanon, so I know the sounds that come are different. I know that the bombings from the sea, due to the sound I hear that it's from the sea. I know the bombings from the plane because, the sound it's different.
Can you explain how it's different?
I don't know how to actually explain the sound, if you know what I mean. Of course, the plane, you hear it closer because it's high above your head. Another thing that we have is the drones. We call it zannana in Arabic because it keeps zin, 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 the drones. And that's basically here all the time. I can hear it now. It's like a surveillance plane.
And what do you have to do? I mean, Naama talked about, having 90 seconds. What about you?
I can't do anything. Well, the thing is, if you don't mind me explaining, Gaza is a very small, densely populated area. So the houses are really close together. So there's no shelter you could go. Either you have to stay in your house or you have to try to go somewhere where it's far from the border or from the clash points. But we don't have shelters where people could just go to because there's no place for them.
Can I just ask you both, from a purely personal, not a political point of view, Naama, can you see an end to this?
No. And that's, one thing that keeps going through my mind since we started this interview is that actually Dalal and I are on the same side. We say the same things. We experience the same things. And it's just, it brings the point even closer to home. Look, we all want peace. I mean the person on the street. I'm not talking about the politicians. They do what they do. That's their thing. We just want normal, some sort of sanity. And I don't see that this is going to happen in the current environment, unfortunately.
And Dalal, can I ask you the same? Can you see an end?
Actually, as Naama said, we are both talking on the same side. And if you talk to any Palestinian person here, he would say to you the same, any person on the street. We just want to live a normal life. We want peace. I don't want to be pessimistic and say no. It has to stop. Because in the end of the day, both are losing. And it really has to stop. And I hope that it stops.
The thoughts there of Dalal Al-Taji in Gaza and Naama Shang in Israel. And sadly, of course, as we know from the events of the past fortnight, the violence didn't stop and hasn't stopped. Well, we originally wanted to bring those two together again to tell us how they're both coping with the stresses of the current situation. Dalal can join us and we'll talk to her in just a moment. Na Amashang is safe and well. We have been in touch with her, but she can't take part in today's programme. But we are joined from Israel by Heather Stone, also visually impaired, who settled in Israel over 30 years ago. Dalal first. First of all, thank you for coming back to talk to us again. Can you just explain your personal circumstances at the moment?
Unfortunately, it seems like the more the years go, the more the war gets sophisticated. And this time has been much more difficult than the last time. The nights are always very difficult. Last night was really difficult. You couldn't sleep because the bombing was really close and you were wondering what's going to happen, what's happening, if anything happens, what can I do? So it's always been like that. Of course, the problem this time is not only the bombing, it's that also we don't have our basic needs with water. We haven't had electricity for around 2 weeks. The house behind mine got bombed, which meant that all my windows in the house have broken.
Can you just explain where you're living? Are you living alone or do you have
Yes,
people?
well, actually, one big difference that had changed since 2014 is in 2014 my mom was around, which was much more, better, but this time she has gone. I'm living with my brother and his wife. We both live in the same building. They live downstairs and I live upstairs. I live in Khan Younis, in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, in a place called Hayy al-Amal al-Araishiyya, which is in the southern part of the city.
And at the moment, what do you do when raids take place?
I just stay at home. I don't have anything else to do. There's nowhere else to go. There's no shelter. You can't go anywhere.
Right. So how are you coping for supplies such as food and water?
Well, I try to contact either people I know or the Palestine Red Crescent Society because I work with them as well. So I try to all contact, and communications is very difficult. To try to contact somebody is not easy because not all the networks are working well. So that's something else. So I try to contact them and, they try to help as much as they can.
Let me go to Heather. First of all, what about your situation? How are you coping? And indeed, are you free to go out if you need to?
Well, I live in Tel Aviv in the northern part of the city. My daughter lives with me, though she's been in the Army Reserve, so she is only home some of the time. So some of the time I'm by myself with my dogs. I have a guide dog and I have another dog. I am able to go out, though I really do keep very close to home, mostly just to take the dogs out when they need to go.
Do what dogs do.
Do what they have to do, and then we come right back. I don't want to be caught outside when there's a siren.
And have you been caught outside?
I have, and it's very, very disorienting to be caught outside when there's a siren. I will say that I was very lucky when it happened that there was a boy on the street who called to me to come into his building, and he took me to his home, to his apartment, 2 flights upstairs. He said that he recognized me from the bus, that he had helped me on the bus before. And he asked me if I recognized him. And of course, I told him that I don't see, so I didn't recognize him. But I appreciated very much that he was so kind to take me in with the dogs and take care of me in this situation.
And this was just a young boy, wasn't it?
Yes, he's a young boy. I don't think he was 12, maybe 10 or 11.
When you are out, we heard in that extract that we had at the beginning about the time that you get. How much warning do you get?
In Tel Aviv, we also get 90 seconds. And we also get, these sirens that are broken up by neighborhood. So we can hear the sirens for our neighborhood, for the neighborhoods around us. So sometimes, even if the siren doesn't go off specifically for our neighborhood, we hear the Iron Dome intercept missiles go up over our neighborhood, and it reverberates. All the buildings around us shake.
Dalal, do you get warnings?
No, we don't get any warnings. We just get one. You're just sitting suddenly, and then the bombing happens. You don't hear anything. Sometimes when a plane goes up around, I say to myself, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? So sometimes it's bombed or sometimes it's just going around. But basically, there's not really a warning.
And you mentioned in that last extract drones. Are you hearing drones
Yes,
now?
they're there all the time, day and night.
Heather, you're involved, I think, with a number of organisations for blind people in Israel. What kind of help is available in this extreme situations? I mean, are there things blind people just can't do now?
Yeah, all of my activities with my blind groups have been put off. So, for instance, I have a swim group with blind people, and that's been canceled because there's no shelter in the facility. But I'm also part of a bicycling group, a tandem bicycling group. And that group, we haven't been able to ride where we would normally ride with a sighted rider in the front and a visually impaired or blind rider in the back. But what we have done is we've organized for the sighted riders are now taking walks with the blind or visually impaired riders. And so 2 or 3 times a week, somebody from the group comes and takes me out for a nice walk, which is nice because otherwise I wouldn't be able to get out of the house.
Dalal, is there help for you and other blind people in Gaza? I mean, for instance, people who perhaps need help with, various things like cooking, cleaning, etc.
Well, actually, yes. I mean, before this happened, I used to get people to help with cleaning and cooking and, buying things I need and maybe taking me out to work and taking me out here and there and going out on the street. At the moment, I don't have this because the people who come and help actually live in indigenous areas, so you can't really ask them to come. I haven't been out since it started. I can't really go out anywhere on the street because, first of all, nobody to go out with, and if you take somebody, you have to bear their responsibility, and it's dangerous because they could get injured or killed. I just stay at home. I just want to comment on what Heather said about the community being cooperative. Really, people here are, our neighbors. They know me and they know us. So anything they can do that I need, they're really very helpful as well. And even some of them, if I needed cooking, if I needed something, the people are really taking care. But also it's not as easy as when you have somebody who actually comes and helps.
No.
And Heather said that, you can go out and have fresh air, which is needed, but I can't do that.
One of the things which you talked about was not being able to get out, but you also talked about the lack of food and water. And of course, we're all hearing about the situation where there's hardly anything available and the lorries are only coming in a dribble.
Yes, the water, I always say water is more important than any other thing, in my opinion. And so every day you're getting up in the morning, trying to look for water, because we have 2 types of water. We have the sweet water, because we can't drink the water that we wash with, because it's contaminated. So we have to look for sweet water, and we have to look for ordinary water. And you have to every day try to look for water. And the problem is the municipality provides you with water from underground, from the wells. But when the house behind us got bombed, this got affected. So we have to get somebody to help try to fix it so that we could easily get water straight to the tanks. That's very difficult. And of course, the other problem is we have a tank in the ground and the tank upstairs. Now the motor, which takes the water from down to up, is with electricity. And now there's no electricity. So the tank down is full, but you can't fill up the one up. So you have to look for a generator. It is very complicated and very difficult.
Heather, we've been talking then about resources, but what about your situation? I mean, how are you coping emotionally with all this?
We're in a situation where we're still reeling from the events of October 7th. And, everyone here knows someone who's been murdered or kidnapped or is missing. And, I'm not an exception from that. I'm the vice chair of Democrats Abroad Israel and member of our board. Her son was killed, and we're all devastated by it. And, the traditions, between Jews and Muslims are similar to have burials right away. But because of the state of the bodies and the sheer number of the bodies, all of that has been delayed. And The burials were delayed for more than a week, in some cases 2 weeks. It's just been a very, very hard period for all of us who've been waiting for news about our loved ones.
I'm going to ask you both this. I mean, Heather, you've now been in Israel for over 30 years. Have you ever thought of leaving?
I had thoughts about it at different periods of time in my life, but I have not thought about it in the last, I'd say, 15 years or so.
You haven't thought this is just too stressful to take, these situations which seem to recur?
No, it's a part of living here, but there are some very good things about living here. And I still believe that somehow or other we will someday achieve peace. I really do hope that it will come, and maybe out of this horrific tragedy, it will come.
And Dalal, what about you? I mean, would you ever leave? Could you ever leave?
No, I can't ever leave, and I won't ever leave. I can't ever leave at the moment because the borders are not open. But I won't ever leave because this is my place, this is my country, these are my people, these are my friends, this is my house. I will never, ever think of leaving. Maybe if I would go out just for a few weeks just to get fresh air, but to actually leave, I can't do that because, as Heather said as well, there are good things, not only bad things. There are good things here. So no way I would think of leaving. I mean, we all want peace. Nobody, I think, wise enough would want war or would want this to go on.
Dalal Al-Taji, Heather Stone, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to In Touch when you both must have many other things on your mind. And we can only say, do stay safe.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you, Dalal.
Thank you, Heather.
That's all for today. From me, Peter White, producer Beth Hemmings, and studio managers Andy Garvey and Chris Hardman. Goodbye.